Hey folks, so now that we've been in Sweden for about 4 months, it seemed like a high time to review the 1 month and 3 month expectations that I had about being here. So let's get into that. I'd say overall the headline is the first 3 and 4 months here were a bit harder than I expected. But that's not across the board, you know. So going over what I'd said, would expect at 3 months. Expected that the honeymoon phase would be over, and yes, it is. But just like a good marriage, I still find that that we are charmed by things here, like the first snow, like cool places we get to visit, stuff like that. And I expected that at 3 months we'd have some sense of the long term, good, bad, or different of being here. I think that's about right, you know. We found that social stuff is easier than expected. And by that I mean, we're obviously missing friends, family, coworkers, our land, as much as we thought we would. But in terms of meeting people here, they're not quite as introverted as we were led to believe by all the interviews and podcasts. So we have been able to meet some folks, and that's obviously been nice. So social stuff easier than expected, financial stuff harder than expected, and in terms of work, I would just say it's different. I had expected that, being a researcher and then coming in more to, process development, working a lot more with standards, that it would just be kind of an easier version of what I'd been doing at GE. But it's not. It's not quite the same thing. It's a different way that people's brains are wired, and so it has been engaging and challenging and a place to adapt. But luckily, the culture at work is really great. I did not expect the culture and the people to make such a big difference, but they have. So I find that, it has been easy to integrate socially, professionally at work. Find that it's easy to talk to people. It's feels like between the interactivity between different groups and kind of the flat hierarchy here, that I can kind of look around and find my place if we are to stay here for the long term. So work is different, but good. And trying to sum up as I think about the long term, think about a year from now. This is obvious, and it's kind of been the case all along, right? But I do really hope that things work out for the best in the U.S. And that means, free and fair elections. As time goes on, that means due process, constitutional rights not being violated. And, I'd love to be able to move back to New York. I feel as if life for us here could get as good as it was in New York, but I can't see it being better. Very grateful for what we've had there. So as of today, because the move has been a bit harder than I expected, I would put it like this: I would put the threshold higher, put the bar higher for moving, but I still don't feel crazy for having done it. At this point, I still would do it again. But then, getting into some more specific, smaller expectations, I'd wondered, can we integrate socially, professionally? I think the answer has been yes, luckily. Would I be afraid of the winter here? Well, no. Just like New York, winter is more about adaptation than fear. Though I will say, the first snow we got here, when they didn't apply any salt at all to the roads, and it got kind of compacted into a very thin, slippery layer, that was something I did not expect. Like how it looked like the road was clear, but it was still a bit slick. that scared us for a hot second there, I will admit. Um, I had hoped that by 3 months our immigration paperwork would be done. Luckily, that is true. Everything took longer than I expected. The getting the car over here, the immigration paperwork, just about everything. But luckily, it is in order. It's working out. I'm grateful for that. Grateful for the help we had there. Yeah, I'd wondered if 3 months in I would still be keeping up with folks, and I'd say I still find myself wishing I kept up with folks better, but honestly, I feel very lucky for our friends and family that have taken the effort to reach out, and might have even talked to people more than we did back in New York, if I think about it or put it on paper. And it's kind of crazy, but we've already had 2 visitors here in this, strange, far-flung corner of the world. So I feel very lucky for that. Then yeah, moving on from there, I had wondered, if our car would be here, our stuff would be here within 1 month. It wasn't, but it has gotten here now. And then I thought, okay, well, I'll probably get overwhelmed at work. I'll probably procrastinate about stuff I want to do at work. But hopefully by 3 months, I would feel a little more on the ball, a little more rooted in my projects. That turned out to be about right, actually. And I'd say I have gotten overwhelmed, and I still get overwhelmed sometimes by just having a larger number of small projects, getting used to how to communicate about very specific issues related to a spec rather than research presentations, research papers, quarterly reviews. That's taken a bit of adjusting to. But now that I've kind of more systematically approached all these small tasks, I'm a bit less overwhelmed there, and that's nice. And I do feel like I've gotten a handle on the flow of projects that I'm rooted, as I had said. And I'll say that luckily, I do not think I've procrastinated about introducing myself to people, about touring the labs, getting to know more about the company, about sharing some of my ideas for the company and the industry. And it's very nice that people have been so open to that. So I felt very, very included right away at work, which is something I was worried about. So there you go. I think that about wraps up expectations versus reality. Not quite what I expected, but not so far off either. So anyway, thanks for tuning in.